On today's LockedOn Giants podcast, we take a look at the Giants defense and special teams. Are the units better or are they worse from this time last year? Find out coming up next on the LockedOn Giants podcast.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily New York Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Locked On Giants podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast family, your team every day. My name is Patricia Traina. Thank you so much for tuning in, Giant fans. We have another big show for you today, part 2 of our better or worse look at the Giants roster. Today, we are going to take a look at the defense and special teams. And today's episode is brought to you in part by Rock Auto. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com and tell them Locked On sent you. And Giant fans, make sure you stick around. A little later on in the program, I'm going to tell you how you can win an NFL jersey of your choice through a promotion that we're running here at the Locked On Giants podcast. It's a free promotion, a fun promotion, I think it's going to be for everybody. And I hope you'll take advantage of it. The details, of course, will also be in the show notes if you want to reference that. All right. So we are going to talk about the Giants defense and special teams on this program, as I mentioned. So let us jump in there now. We are going to start with the Giants defensive line. And let's take a look at who the Giants have on the defensive line. They have Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrence II, Austin Johnson, Danny Shelton, Raymond Johnson. All right. Now, is the unit better or worse? Let's talk a little bit about this group first. Leonard Williams, obviously, he is the crown jewel, if you will, of the group. The guy who had 11 and a half sacks last year, thanks to a position switch, basically Patrick Graham playing him more as a 5 tech, allowing him to penetrate and take advantage of the double team blocks and whatnot that were being drawn by the other guys. So Leonard Williams with a big year last year. Now, what I'm curious to see is whether or not Leonard Williams is able to match that production, because the Giants don't have Dalvin Tomlinson on their defensive line, who did a lot of the dirty work inside. Didn't really get a lot of credit, but did a lot of the dirty work for Leonard Williams and the rest of the defense to kind of get in there and make plays. But that said, Leonard Williams still a very good player. Complete player, can play the run, can play the pass. He can rush the passer. So he's probably their most complete defensive lineman. Dexter Lawrence, I spoke yesterday about how Sterling Shepard was probably one of the most underrated players on the Giants team. I need to amend that statement. Sterling Shepard is probably one of the most underrated players on the Giants offense. When we are talking the Giants defense, Dexter Lawrence is my pick for the most underrated player on this defense. A guy who is a stout run defender, showed a little bit more as a pass rusher last season. I think he had something like 4 sacks, if I'm not mistaken. And look, the Giants need that defensive front to be able to step up and rush the passer, because, there's some question marks on the edges, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. But Dexter Lawrence is a guy that I don't think gets enough credit, but who is a very underrated part of that defensive unit and of that defensive line. So very good player and a guy that the Giants are expecting to take another step forward. He's gradually been increasing his value to the team and has been doing a good job of it. So I'm looking forward to seeing what Dexter Lawrence brings to the Giants defense this year. Austin Johnson and Danny Shelton actually are probably going to be the two guys that try to pick up the slack left behind by Dalvin Tomlinson going to the Minnesota Vikings in free agency. Now, for me, the jury's still out a little bit on Austin Johnson. I mean, he was solid, but I need to see a little bit more in terms of consistency and production from him. Danny Shelton, is a big, big man. And Blake Martinez, the inside linebacker, spoke about how sometimes he can't see beyond Shelton because he just blocks out a lot of the guys, the offensive tackles and offensive linemen that are trying to get to the second level to clear things out. And Danny Shelton, I think he can be productive. You have to remember, Shelton played with the New England Patriots, so Joe Judge knows a little bit about what he can bring to the table. I'm sure Patrick Graham at this point knows a lot about what he can bring to the table. So Shelton, I think, is probably going to be more of the run stuffer on first, second down. I don't see him being an every down player. And then Raymond Johnson is I believe, the only undrafted free agent to make the Giants roster this year. In fact, to make the Giants roster in the last 2 years. There were none that made it out of training camp last year. Very promising pass rusher, but still a little bit on the raw side. Raymond Johnson was a big reason why BJ Hill was expendable for the Giants. So the Giants, keeping that young man on the roster. And I don't know how much he's actually going to play in the rotation. My guess is if you're talking about game day inactives, he might be among them. So we'll see if how much he actually contributes to the defensive line. All right. So better or worse? That is the question. For me, I went back and forth on this, and I'm going to say that this unit is probably a smidge worse than it was last year. I know, surprise, right? Because I've always said the last couple of years that the defensive line was the strength of the team. I don't feel that way anymore. I think everybody knows what position group is the strength of the team. Hint, it is on defense. So we will be talking about it shortly. But the reason why I think the defensive front is just a smidge worse, no Dalvin Tomlinson, no BJ Hill, Austin Johnson, solid, but, didn't get a whole lot of reps last year. Raymond Johnson, a rookie, question marks about Danny Shelton. I just feel like there's a little bit more in terms of question marks about the defensive front that we don't yet know the answers to. So to start the year, I'm going to say a smidge worse than last year. That doesn't mean they can't turn it around. That doesn't mean I think they're garbage. That's not true. I think there's talent there. Like I said, Leonard Williams, Dexter Lawrence, two guys that I think are key players for that unit. But I need to see more from that group before I feel a little bit better about where they are headed into the season. All right, let's now take a look at the outside linebackers. The outside linebackers consist of Lorenzo Carter, Aziz Autulari, O'Shane Ximenez, and Quincy Rochet. All right, Ellerson Smith is on IR for those of you who might have missed that news. So those are the four outside linebackers. And, just as an FYI, obviously there's some inside linebackers who can play on the edge, but I'm going to save them more for the inside linebacker group, and I'll talk about them when they come up. But let's focus on those four. Lorenzo Carter, coming off of an Achilles injury, was a solid looking player last year, a guy who finally looked like he put it all together as far as developing a pass rush plan, as far as, figuring out how to adjust out there. And then, of course, the injury came crashing down. Now, the good news with Lorenzo Carter is this summer, and even going back to the spring, he's been out there. He looks fully healthy. He looks ready to go. He's confident. He's more comfortable with what he's doing. I am expecting big things from Lorenzo Carter this year in the pass rush department. Lorenzo Carter also, what I need to see more of from him is setting the edge against the run. I thought he did a decent job of it before he got hurt, but he needs to obviously continue that. Aziz Autulari, that would be my rookie of the year choice for the Giants. Not a hard choice, obviously, to make considering the state of the rest of the rookies, but Aziz Autulari, the second round pick, this kid, I think, is going to open the season as a starter. I think he has great pass rush potential. But, here's the thing. When you have a young pass rusher, sometimes they need a little time to develop, get extra moves that work for them, figure out how they're going to attack their opponent, learn the finer points of watching film. I do think Autulari is going to be a solid edge rusher for the Giants. Is he going to be, like a 5-year veteran? No, he's got to grow into that role. And how is he going to be against the run? He was solid against the run in college, but, again, college and the NFL game, kind of different, a little faster at the NFL game, a little better athletes at the NFL level. So that said, I think Autulari is going to be a solid player for the Giants, a solid edge rusher. And I really like the duo of Carter and Autulari as your potential every down outside linebacker combo. Oshane Ximines. Now, this is a guy that I got to admit, I had question marks about him coming in when he started training camp on the PUP list with I believe he had a hamstring issue. I'm sitting there and I'm saying, oh my gosh, Oshane, you got to get out there, man. You can't be sitting on the sideline while the world is passing you by. This is a kid who showed potential as a rookie, but you have to remember something about Oshane Ximines. He came from a smaller program, right? Old Dominion, a good school, but when you're comparing it to, say, an Alabama or a Georgia, there really is no comparison. So the point being is Ximines had a little bit more of a learning curve ahead of him. And that learning curve, unfortunately, was interrupted last year. He suffered the season-ending shoulder injury. He missed a good chunk of camp with the hamstring injury. And, the thing that I think alarmed me most about what we saw from Ximines in the summer was his run defense, just setting that edge. It's just not where you need it to be yet. So initially, I got to say, sometimes he reminded me a little bit of a young O.C. Umenyiora, a guy with a quick first step, but a guy who wasn't always consistent with setting the edge. So the more I think about this, the more I'm kind of convinced that Ximines is going to be kind of like the third pass rusher in that group. And I've always said that the Giants, if they really want to get a good pass rush going, they need to have at least 3 decent guys who can get to the quarterback. Ximines can get to the quarterback. Probably needs to develop a few additional moves, or at least refine what he has in his toolbox. But I'm actually encouraged by what I've seen from him in the limited snaps that he's played, save for the run defense, which I think needs a little bit more refinement. And then finally, Quincy Rochet. That was a guy, former 6th-round pick by the Steelers this past year, has pass rushing potential. I think you'll see him in sub packages, but I don't know, obviously, how he's done against the run if he has to be out there in run support. So I have question marks about him, obviously. I do like the pickup, don't get me wrong, but I just, this was a guy I know a lot of Giant fans were interested in last year and thought he might be drafted higher than he was in this past April's draft. Went in the 6th round, as I mentioned, for the Steelers, and not a bad player, but I think the jury's still out on him at this level. So we'll see how he does. All right. Now, edge rushers, are they better or worse than last year? This one is tough for me because you got 2 guys coming off of injury in Carter and Ximines. You've got a rookie in Autulari and Rochet. But with that said, I go back and I think about what the Giants had last year. And I like the potential of this year's group. And I know that's a dangerous slope to get on. It's a slippery slope to get on because, a guy can have potential and just never pan out. But that said, folks, I'm going to say that this group is better than last year's edge rushing group. And I know, again, it's dangerous to base that on the potential, but I'm going to go with better because I think the Giants are going to be able to get a lot out of these guys as edge rushers and hopefully, fingers crossed, in setting the edge against the run game. All right, Giant fans, we have plenty more coming up on today's LockedOn Giants podcast. But first, get all the latest news, odds, info, and sign-up bonuses for all your sporting needs by heading over to betonline.ag on your laptop or mobile device. When you open an account and use our special promo code LockedOn, you will receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Again, that's code LockedOn for your 50% welcome bonus. Terms and conditions apply. BetOnline, your online sportsbook experts. Hey, Giant fans, welcome back to the LockedOn Giants podcast. You have Patricia Traina here, and we are doing a better or worse look at the Giants defense and special teams. And in this segment, we're going to take a look at the linebackers and the cornerbacks. So I'm sorry, the inside linebackers and the cornerbacks. So let's go and jump right in. Inside linebackers. Now they have Blake Martinez, Tate Crowder, Reggie Ragland, Carter Coughlin, and Cam Brown. Now Carter Coughlin and Cam Brown, I'll get to those two in a minute, but I put them in the inside linebacker spot, even though they can play inside and outside linebacker. All right, so let's talk about the big three. Blake Martinez, I mean, come on. Is anybody going to question that this guy is the unquestionable leader of that defense? I mean, ever since coming over to the Giants and changing his role, and if you remember last year when he came over to the Giants, he spoke about how he had always been in a cleanup role while with the Packers, and his role was going to change into more of an attack style role. And boy, did he make the most of it. I mean, the guy is as reliable as the day is long. And he's going to be your every down backer. I mean, no question about it. Martinez is not going to leave the field very often. And if he does, the chances are it's going to be because of injury. Now, let's talk about Tate Crowder and Reggie Ragland. In the Giants' base defense, I don't think they run two inside linebackers a lot. I don't have the percentage in front of me, but I know last year they did a lot of sub packages where they put an extra, defensive back on the field or an outside linebacker. So, the second linebacker, the second inside linebacker, maybe not as important per se, but let's talk about Crowder and Ragland, who I think are two kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum. And Crowder, who, by the way, was last year's Mr. Irrelevant, started 6 games last year, has speed and athleticism, but his angles weren't very sharp all the time, had some missed tackles. In coverage, he was, I thought, better than he was maybe in going downhill. So it's interesting because I look at Crowder as the coverage guy and I look at Ragland as more of the downhill guy. Ragland is a power option, a guy who is a thumper, a guy who is probably a 2-down type of backer, a guy you want in there in sure running down situations. In coverage, I don't know. I mean, I wasn't blown away by his coverage skills. But I'll tell you what, against a heavy running offensive team, like a Cowboys team, for example, that likes to pound the ball with Ezekiel Elliott, Ragland, I think people are going to be glad that he is on the field for the Giants in those types of games. All right, Carter Coughlin, Cam Brown. Oh, and I forgot to mention Justin Hilliard before. I know I flashed that up on the screen. But let me talk about Coughlin and Cam Brown real quick. Cam Brown is going to be a core special teamer. He's a guy who can give them some snaps on the outside, a few snaps inside. He's primarily an inside linebacker, but I don't think you're going to see him a whole lot on the defense. You're going to see him more so on special teams where he's just, that size and that length as a gunner. Oof. Look out, special teams, because that's going to be something to watch. Carter Coughlin is another guy who initially, when he came out of school, was primarily an inside linebacker, dabbled a little bit as an edge rusher, and didn't look that bad, to be honest with you. Not an every down backer just yet, but a good piece for some of the sub packages. And, you're talking about versatility, which is what you want to see at the bottom of the depth chart with the with Coughlin and Brown, guys that you can move inside or outside as you need. So two underrated, but I think valuable pieces there in that inside linebacker group. And then Justin Hilliard, whom the Giants claimed off waivers from the 49ers. You know what? I'm thinking he's going to be a special teamer, even though I think he was amongst the team leaders for the 49ers in the preseason in tackles. So I don't have a whole lot on him. Nick Filato did do a piece on Justin Hilliard for Giants Country. If you want to check that out, I'll put that in the show notes. But a little different. Every team has different tweaks to their defenses. So still trying to kind of figure out where he fits in. And I need to get a better feel for that. So I guess my judgment on that move is, while I'm encouraged by the move. I can't give you a full breakdown on that. So, all right, better or worse? This one's easy. Better and not even close. The inside linebackers are so much better. Think about it. This time last year, you had Blake Martinez, Tate Crowder, Devonta Downs, who I think ended up starting for the Giants in the beginning part of the year. This group is so much more solid, and it's been a while since I think you could say the inside linebacker group for this Giants team has been this solid. So I'm really excited to see how they're deployed and how Patrick Graham takes advantage of some of the versatility that these guys have to offer. All right, let's now talk about the Giants cornerbacks. So the Giants have James Bradbury, Dory Jackson, Rodarius Williams, Darnay Holmes, Keon Crossan, Sam Beale, and Josh Jackson. So that's 7 by my count. Let me see. Bradbury, Jackson, Williams, Holmes, Crossan, Beale, Jackson. So yeah, 7 cornerbacks. Wow, that's a lot of cornerbacks, isn't it? All right, James Bradbury. Okay, shutdown cornerback, Pro Bowl cornerback. Really nothing to discuss there as far as I'm concerned. Dory Jackson. One of the reasons why the Giants were so intrigued and so determined to land Dory Jackson, obviously, is to be able to play more man-to-man coverage, which Jackson can give them if he is healthy. He's, of course, dealing with that ankle injury that he suffered in the late summer. So Jackson, is he going to be ready for Sunday's game against the Broncos? At this point, folks, as I record this, I don't have an answer yet. I'll have a better feel for that later in the week. But I'll tell you what, a healthy Jackson, in my opinion, is better than anything the Giants had at their second cornerback position last year, where they had Corey Ballantyne, they had Isaac Yadam, Ryan Lewis. So, right there is an upgrade. No question about it. Let's see. Rodarius Williams, the rookie, played well during the summer, had a few bumps along the way, but that was to be expected from a rookie cornerback. But I'll tell you what, I like what I saw from him, and I think if he has to start for Dory Jackson, that could be a very interesting scenario. And I think Rodarius Williams could be up to the task there. I'm a little concerned about the run defense with him, but I think he will hold his own if he has to go out there and start if Dory Jackson can't play on Sunday against the Broncos. Darnay Holmes, the slot cornerback, held on to the role. Obviously, I think, the Giants were looking to bring in Aaron Robinson, who is currently on PUP, to maybe take some of the snaps. Aaron Robinson, a bigger cornerback than Darnay Holmes. But you know what? Darnay Holmes, even though he wasn't horrible last year, he's always played bigger than his listed size. So, would he have held on to the starting slot cornerback job had Robinson been healthy? I can't say that for sure. But, if nothing else, if I'm Darnay Holmes, I really pick up my game this year and maybe cut down on some of the other things, especially since, Julian Love, Xavier McKinney, these are some guys who can come down and play in the slot. So I'm kind of curious to see how many snaps Holmes plays in the slot this season. I have a feeling he's going to see a reduction in his snaps. I could be wrong, but just a gut feeling there. Keon Crossan, special teamer. All right. I don't know that we will see him that much on defense. Sam Beale and Josh Jackson. Josh Jackson is a guy I don't think we saw a whole lot of. Quite frankly, I was surprised he made the roster, considering he was injured and didn't really get out there that much. So that said, that Josh Jackson is a guy the Giants acquired in the trade with the Packers for Isaac Yiadom. It's really a no risk type of situation, in my opinion. It's like you swap the player who wasn't going to make your roster for another player who may or may not be on your roster by the end of the year. So nothing venture, nothing gain. So we'll see if what kind of role he has. But right now, I'm not sure what that role is. So, and again, we haven't seen a whole lot of him since he's come over from the Packers. Let's talk Sam Beale. Now, I'm not going to lie. I was stunned that Sam Beale made the roster. That said, Sam Beale, to his credit, came on strong towards the second half of the summer camp. He started to make plays, started to show that athleticism. And I have always said about the Giants that they don't want to give up on talent. And I think it's especially true when a draft choice is involved in the matter, which Sam Beale, even though it was a supplemental draft pick that was used on him, he's still, regarded as a draft pick. A guy who, prior to opting out last year, Dave Gettleman said, had he been coming out in that draft, he probably would have had a second round grade. So to suggest that the Giants would have been better off giving up on him, even after he opted out, I figured the Giants at the very least would go practice squad with him. But they obviously felt that it would be a risk to expose him to waivers, and they kept him on the roster because they do see the talent, and apparently they do feel that Sam Beale can be, he can develop into a player for them. And what type of role, I can't say just yet. I don't know that they know, but it's going to be interesting to see how much playing time Sam Beale gets. And if maybe, who knows, maybe in a surprising move, might he start for Dory Jackson if he's not able to play? I don't think that will happen. I think, you got to go with Rodarius Williams there, but, at least Sam Beale does have a handful of NFL snaps under his belt in the regular season. So that's going to be something I think to keep an eye on. And would it surprise me if that happened? Probably not. Even though I personally wouldn't make that move, but I'm not paid to make that decision. That's up to Patrick Graham, obviously. All right. So bottom line, are the cornerbacks better or worse than they were a year ago? I am going to say better, slightly better. As I mentioned, Dory Jackson is an upgrade over any of the cornerbacks the Giants started opposite of James Bradbury last year. So that alone helps this unit's rankings boost in my eyes. Rodarius Williams, very promising player. Like what he brings to the table, just needs to clean up a few things, obviously. Sam Beale, even though I had him not making the roster initially, I see why he made it. I see the talent in him, and it's good to have that talent back. So those are some of the factors behind my ranking and giving the cornerbacks a better ranking than they had this time last year. All right, Giant fans, we have still more to come here on the LockedOn Giants podcast. But first, no matter what your need for your car or truck, Rock Auto is sure to have it in its extensive online catalog. RockAuto.com offers brand name parts for every make, model, and manufacturer at highly competitive prices, and they ship right to your door. Visit RockAuto.com and be sure to write down Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so that they know we sent you. That's RockAuto.com. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. RockAuto.com. Hey, Giant fans, we have more coming up on today's show. But first, tell me, Does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live, another that lets you stream your favorite shows. You're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you've got your neighbor's best friend's login for the good stuff. Well, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all that entertainment that you love without the hassle, and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called Directv Stream, and it brings you live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before so that you can watch all your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes and no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, there's no annual contract. So get rid of all the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with Directv Stream. You can learn more at directv.com. That's directv.com. Compatible device required. Content varies according to package. All right, Giant fans, welcome back to the LockedOn Giants podcast. Patricia Traina here with you. We are doing a better or worse rundown of the Giants position groups. We are on the defense. We have safety still to do. We also have special teams still to do, and those are coming up. But first, I want to tell you about how you can enter to win an NFL jersey of your choice. This year here at the LockedOn Giants podcast, we are running a special pool where every week entrants can pick who they think is going to win the games. There's no entry fee. There's no cost whatsoever involved. It's all for fun. And through our partnership with runyourpool.com, they are giving away a jersey of the winner's choice. So at the end of the year, whoever has won the most games, has the most points, will win a jersey. Now, complete details and the sign up link, you can find that in the show notes here on YouTube. If you're listening to us on the podcast on Odyssey and Apple and Stitcher and all the audio podcast platforms, that will also be in the show notes, but you can certainly check that out. And I'll also put a link on that in my Twitter feed, which is at Patricia_Traina if you want to enter. Again, there's no cost to enter. It's just for fun. Let's see how we do. I know I like to, last year I used to pick who was going to win, who wasn't going to win, and all that stuff. I used to use the point spread, and I did pretty well. And, I'm not going to necessarily, be in the competition with everybody, but it'll be fun to see how everybody does. So make sure you check that out, and good luck to everybody who enters. And don't forget, check out runyourpool.com if you're interested in setting up your own pool for your business or with your friends or, whoever you want to have in your pool. It's a great way to set it up. They have a lot of cool formats, so I highly recommend them. All right, let's get back to business here. And we will look at the safeties group. So the Giant safeties have Logan Ryan, Jabril Peppers, Xavier McKinney, and Julian Love. All right, now remember when I said that I thought there was another group that was the strongest of position group on the Giants? This would be it. I love this safeties group. The versatility, the quality of the players. If you're Patrick Graham right now, you are probably sitting there thanking your lucky stars because the safety position has become so important in NFL defenses. You see safety sometimes coming down into the box and being a pseudo linebacker. They call it the star linebacker. You see them sometimes move to the slot. There's just so much more you can do with safeties. And in these four, the Giants really have themselves, I think, one of the top safety groups in the NFL. So let's take a look at each player individually. Logan Ryan, obviously, I think the unquestioned leader of that group. And an every down player, obviously. Jabril Peppers, more of a box safety, I think, than a coverage guy, but as a pseudo linebacker, a star type of linebacker, as a blitzer, love his skill set, and I think he's going to be very disruptive for the Giants on that defense and getting into the backfield and messing things up for the opposing offenses. Xavier McKinney. I'm curious to see how the Giants deploy McKinney. I mean, again, this is a guy who can do a little bit of everything. And Is he going to rotate with, Peppers or Ryan when they're in the base defense? That I don't know. I would think he'll probably rotate more with Peppers than he would with Ryan when they're in the base defense. But I would not be surprised to see McKinney on the field taking some snaps in the slot. Like I said, playing that star linebacker role. I think there's a variety of things they can do with him. And it's just a matter of where his best fit is. So still kind of trying to learn where his fit is in this defense. He did play well in the limited snaps he had last year when he came off of IR from that broken foot, but a lot of talent there. And, this is a guy who might be the underrated guy of the group. And then Julian Love, Mr. Versatility, the secret weapon. I mean, you could play Love at safety. You could play him at cornerback. He's a coach's dream, which is how Patrick Graham basically described him. When you have a guy who can do so many things well, like Julian Love can, don't underestimate that, folks. That's, when you have injuries and now you can plug Love in anywhere, just about anywhere on that back end of the defense, that is a valuable commodity to have. And even though, you might be hard pressed to say that Love does any one thing particularly well, he does enough of the little things really well to warrant his spot on the roster. And really curious to see how the Giants deploy him, if he's going to be, in some of the dime packages, maybe. Is he going to find his way in on some of the nickel stuff? Really a deep safety group that they can rotate guys in, and they have a lot of options. So suffice it to say, you probably know what my ranking is of this group, which was pretty good last year, by the way. But having a healthy Xavier Mckinney just makes this group all that much better. So I give this group a better ranking in my better or worse rundown. All right. Now, last but not least, we have the specialists. Now, this is pretty cut and dried. Your kicker is Graham Gano. Your punter is Riley Dixon. The long snapper is Casey Kreider. Cut and dried, like I said. What we don't yet know, though, and I'm going to expand this a little bit to the returners. Who's going to be the kickoff returner? My guess is CJ Board is going to hold that role down. And who's going to be the punt returner? I have a feeling, and I hope I'm wrong, it's going to be Jabril Peppers, which I'm not crazy about, by the way. Not that because Peppers was bad at the role last year, but I still am not a big fan of putting my starters, guys who are going to get a lot of snaps on offense or defense, in a return man role. All right. So that said, let's take a look at the concern I have about this unit. And the concern I have is with Dixon. Last year, Dixon, his punting was inconsistent. Now, I've also mentioned in the past that Dixon's gunner coverage was not very good last year. And the way you could conclude that is just look at the high number of tackles that Dixon had to make. I think he was like fourth on special teams last year in total tackles. You don't want your punter being anywhere near the top of a heap with special teams tackles. That said, Dixon has better gunner play. And theoretically speaking, the punting should be better. But here's the caveat. Dixon at times had struggles with directional punting. And if he's better with that, then the Giants special teams unit is going to be pretty solid. And the Giants are relying on that special teams unit because here's the thing. Too many times last year, they didn't win the starting field position battle. They have to win that battle this year for a couple reasons. Number one, it takes the onus off of the offense, which is got question marks. All right. Skill position players notwithstanding, will the offense have enough time to operate, with the offensive line being probably the biggest question mark? So give that unit maybe a shorter field to work with. Don't ask that unit to have to, go the entire length of the field. And maybe they have a fighting chance, at least to build up some momentum, if you will, some confidence in what they're doing out there. Obviously, the defense, I think they could handle just about anything, any starting field position that the opponent gets, but why make them work harder than they have to? So special teams, I think, is going to be a very big factor. It really is. I mean, I'm not telling you anything new here, but special teams, we don't talk about a whole lot. But I think this year, especially, that special teams unit is going to be huge. And, it starts with starting field position. So I'd like to see better job by Riley Dixon. Graham Gano last year was pretty good when it came to scoring. 96.9% of his field goal attempts were converted, which is the second highest total, or I should say the second highest conversion percentage in his career, behind the 96.7% he had in 2017 with the Panthers. But here's the thing that doesn't get talked about a whole lot with Gano's game. His kickoffs were not very good. All right. Gano in a 16-game season, I'm just looking at his stats here, his touchback percentage, 41.1%, the lowest of his career in a 16-game season. All right. So he had 73 kickoffs, 30 went for touchbacks. That's not a stat that is very good, folks. You want to see that number higher. All right. Now, I don't know why his kickoffs were an issue, but you don't want returners to have the opportunity to return kickoffs. If you can knock the ball out of the end of the end zone, that's what you want to do. You don't want to give the opponent a chance to return a kickoff and get ideal starting field position. So that to me is the one strike, if you will, against Gano last year. Again, great scorer. His extra points, I think he had a 91.3% conversion rate, 21 of 23, no problem there. But the kickoffs, that part was just the ugly part of his game. So if they can improve that with him, even better. All right. So special teams, better or worse? Theoretically, I mean, you're talking a lot of the same guys. So I am going to say even. I'm going to go even because I need to see better kickoff production from Gano. I need to see Dixon be more consistent with his directional kicking. And the starting field position battle. I mean, they have to win that battle. They showed signs of being able to win it in the preseason. But remember, you also had Ryan Santoso doing most of the kickoffs in the preseason. So I think the jury's out there. So that's why I'm going to say it's even. We'll call it even for this group. And fingers crossed that when I get to the end of the year and I do the review, I can say that they were better. But right now, I can't say that in all honesty. So, all right, Giant fans, that is going to do it for this edition of the LockedOn Giants podcast. Hope you enjoyed the rundown. And of course, if you would like to tell me what you thought about the position rankings, you can drop a comment below if you're looking at this on YouTube, or if you want to send me an email, the email address is in the show notes. Definitely check that out. And before we say goodbye, let me just quick tell you about Locked On Bets. Betting on the NFL doesn't have to be a guessing game if you listen to the new Locked On Bets podcast hosted by your boy Q and handicapping expert Lee Sterling. You can get daily picks, blowout specials, wrong team favorite picks, and Lee Sterling's lock of the day. Follow the Locked On Bets podcast brought to you by betonline.ag, wherever you get your podcasts. Folks, we'll be back tomorrow. The Giants practice on Wednesday. They begin their preparation for the Denver Broncos and week 1. Still to come on the Locked On Giants podcast, we're going to have crossover Thursday and just all the news and everything you need to know to get you ready for week 1 of the regular season. So until tomorrow, folks, have a great one. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon.